city was eligible for funding. So obviously that pushed it forward on the city's priority list. So there are federal funds that are going to be involved in this project, and the city is eligible up to $1.5 million of federal funds for this project. So the city has approximately 3 years to get the project completed. I think they signed the agreement in February of this year, so we need to get it, it's not completed. We need to get it out for bids in 3 years from February of 23. So that's kind of the schedule we're working with.
Wasn't there discussion to where if Fairfax didn't accept the up to 1.5, then it would get pushed back if ever offered again?
It'd be put back on the list, but yeah, if we don't get it done in time, it wouldn't come off the list, but it would go back on it. We'd lose the funding, or if you didn't accept it. And you could have accepted state funding. The city could have accepted state funding, but that was only up to $500,000, which most of you are aware doesn't go very far anymore. So that's kind of the background of the project. Any questions with that?
I actually am going to, I have a list of questions that I don't want to be repetitive, but I need them all answered. So I would like you to, if you would, just go through your, whatever you're going to say, and then at the end, if I could just ask a question.
Yeah, I figured, at the end, we can have time for questions and answers too. And again, I don't know if I can answer all your questions right now, but we'll do our best to answer what we can. One thing I should mention too, before we get started, is part of the federal funding and part of this process, we're working through the Iowa DOT. There's different things that are involved that aren't always involved in other projects. So we're not going to be doing any negotiation for property acquisitions, easement acquisitions today. And that can't happen until after we get through the environmental concurrence. So just so everybody's aware of that. But we still wanted to meet, be able to kind of give everyone an update of where we're at, kind of what the schedule looks like, and take the chance to answer any questions, address any concerns. So the first little packet, or first exhibits in your packet, there should be 3 sheets in there. So you're obviously all aware of the bridge by Cemetery Road. Again, it was built 105 years ago, 106 years ago. The standards now are a lot different than they were back then, if there were even standards. I don't know. So putting back the bridge exactly the same is not feasible with today's standards. But we looked at that first sheet, we looked at, what if we put the bridge back in the same alignment? And that's kind of what that reflects. It's not exact, but it gives you some idea of what could happen. This option was considered. It still leaves that intersection with the highway. There's a couple things that are a concern there. That intersection is skewed. As I'm sure all of you are aware, you sit there and you want to fall on the highway, cross the highway, you got to turn your body and look to the right, so on and so forth. But DOT does not like that. The city does not like that intersection. So we looked at the opportunity to fix that. And for those of you that are, come off of that intersection just north there, and, you go up to your businesses, and there's the private drive that heads north to other businesses. And that drive over the last 4 or 5 years has gotten a lot busier with development up there to the north. We looked at, improving that as well, and turning that into a public street and improving that intersection. So that's the first option. If we keep that alignment the same, we really can't do anything with that intersection or with the private drive. So the second option, and so the council's decided which option they want to go through, and that's the last one I'll touch on. But so the second option that the council looked at and considered is just to remove the bridge and don't put it back. Obviously, there's the bridge just 300, 400 feet south on the highway, so it's an option. But if we do that, that significantly impacts the NIMS's property and Bart County's property. We'd have to improve that intersection with Stallman Drive. Right now, it's not in a position for truck traffic. I don't know, Barb, Nimpsons, I don't know if you have any idea what kind of traffic you currently see on Stallman. But obviously, if we close down that bridge, we would have to put all that traffic on Stallman. Stallman would have to be improved. The intersection with the highway would have to be improved. We just threw together a quick sketch. We don't know what the full impacts would be. Obviously, the DOT would have to get involved with that process if we did that. Right now, there's a right-hand turn lane for East Cemetery. I don't know if there'd be room to put a turn lane in if we did this, if we took the bridge out and did that revised alignment, so although I know, removing the bridge from the city standpoint and not having a bridge to maintain, repair, and replace would be fantastic. The overall decision was that it was too much of an impact on the people. But then the third option, that last sheet, was to realign the street slightly, pushes the bridge north a little bit. It impacts the Breck's property in that southeast corner a little bit. The city had obtained the easterly side of the creek there. It's probably going on close to 10 years ago now, but, and then obviously it realigns the, West Cemetery Road, pushes it north. It kind of ties directly into the private drive heading northeast of that intersection, and it squares up the intersection with the highway. Are there any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns with those options? And like I said, the last option, the last sheet is the direction the council has indicated it wants to move forward with. So then obviously the bridge design would be one thing I guess I did want to touch base with also with that third option is so the city's receiving federal, city's receiving federal funding and it's for the bridge. And basically how it's defined is it's kind of where the bridge ties back down into the existing grades. So that exhibit, and it's not exact, how much of the project will be funded and how much won't. But, there's kind of three sections. There's the bridge section and there's the section to the west and the section to the east. So what we're looking at doing for this overall project is doing it in two projects. So the bridge project would be one project. And then the exteriors and exactly those project limits, we don't know for sure yet at this time. But the exteriors then would be a city project. The hope is to do them simultaneously, not to shut down access, 1 year and then the next year do it again, try to get the headaches over in one construction season's the goal. The projects may overlap a little bit, but hopefully all the accesses and shutdowns and things will be done during the construction season. And the reason for that is, there'd be utility improvements, the intersection improvement over here. We don't get bridge funding, wouldn't apply to all of that. So we don't want to have to, if we're not getting the funding, we don't want to have to meet the federal regulations, which cost more in the design and construction process for those portions. Okay. Moving on to that second packet. So there should be a sheet in there for each property only that we're anticipating impacting. Obviously, everybody that lives or regularly commutes to the west there is going to be impacted, but their properties shouldn't be significantly impacted or impacted at all. Same to the northeast on that private drive. People coming in and out of there will be impacted. Anybody that uses that route will be impacted, obviously, but from a property owner standpoint, I think we have the five sheets for the 5 different property owners. So just starting in the northwest corner, the first sheet is the Breck property. So these exhibits, again, I want to emphasize that these are not final, they're not designs, they're just kind of give you an idea of what we anticipate may be impacted. The red or pinkish shaded area is what the city would look at acquiring from the property owners. It would become city right away. The green would be either permanent or temporary easement. So on the Breck property, as you may or may not be aware, obviously when you do a bridge, the bridge comes up, you know, and is elevated, so you have the approaches are raised. So we, you know, we're gonna fill as we approach the bridge. So we have some acquisition, you know, closer to the roadway on the south portion. The green property, we're showing that right now as possible construction staging area since it's currently vacant. You know, that's something, as we get further into the design, we get into the negotiation process, we'll work out any of those details. But maybe that's not where we'll stage, but right now that's just an area that we've identified as a possibility. So that's kind of the anticipated impact on the Breck property at this time. And again, it very well might change as we get forward further in the design and get into the negotiation process, so. And again, as we go through these individual properties, if you have questions, comments, concerns. The other thing is we go through these. If there's anything that may impact, you know, this project may impact on your property, you know, things like sewer, septic. Obviously, Ron, I don't imagine you have any sewer, septic on that lot at this point in that area. But, obviously not all the properties are vacant currently. If you have any, you know, septic that dumps into the general area of the project limits, if you have any, drain tile, storm sewer, fencing, parking, access, you know, any of those concerns that you'd want to point out or have questions about, you know, let us know as you're looking at these, you know, and you can let us know later too, but you know, if you're looking at it going, well, what does that do for this? You know, you can bring it up now.
Concerns about my lane getting people up there. How far are they gonna get into that? I mean, we just got it chopped off, squared off, but
So yeah,
I
that,
gotta have a way to get people up in there.
yeah, so that existing gravel drive would
Yeah.
remain open. So,
So how are you gonna get in there from there? Are they gonna close this other road down, or are they gonna be able to come in there from the other one to get in, or how much that road's gonna be closed when they start tearing it up?
so the thought is, from a staging standpoint, and we'll get into, when we look at the NIMSIS property a little bit, having a temporary access lane through the northeast corner of their property while that's being done. And so it'd just be staged. So you'd have a drive that would come through. And then you'd pave it, so you maintain access to properties. So obviously, when the bridge is down, if you want to get to your property, any of the properties to the west, you know, get to Stallman Drive, any of those properties, we're gonna have to have traffic coming on Stallman from the highway. And the properties on the east side of the bridge.
That's what I was wondering, you ain't gonna block that off too, so you'd have to come in from the other west.
Yeah, obviously, when the bridge is down, we'll have to have that access will be Stallman Drive. I mean, other than there may be like a 4-hour period or something like that, you know, they shut stuff down to do a driveway or something, or do half a driveway, things like that. And all that gets coordinated during the construction. But you know, the plan is to have permanent access, you know, for everybody throughout the project. Obviously, there's inconveniences in all construction projects, but we want to maintain access for everybody throughout the project, so. Right, so the second sheet, Weisskopf's property. There you're getting into the street realignment. The again, we'll have to coordinate access through there. Again, we don't know exactly how that parking lot's gonna be impacted. We anticipate there's gonna have to be some grade changes. The existing street obviously is gonna get pushed closer to the parking lot. And there's grade changes, so we anticipate we're probably gonna have to get into the parking lot area that's kind of reflected in this drawing and reshape some of that and regrade that. So we're reflecting that green as temporary to do that reshaping and so forth. I don't know if I know when we extended sewer up through there, I believe that property was hooked up to city sewer. Water, I think you're currently on a well. We don't have water on that side yet. So as part of this property, we're looking, water, when the highway project was done, we extended water underneath. So as part of this project, we're looking to extend water through this intersection. Obviously, so we're gonna pave it and get it improved. We wanna get water. So we'll get water extended to the north side of that. Extend sewer and water to the west side of the bridge, provide sewer and water there. The next sheet, Ron Hilton's property, similar type thing. We anticipate we'll probably get into the parking lot a little bit, may have to reshape some things there. Again, we don't know exactly how it's gonna be impacted until we get to the design, but. And again, from an access standpoint, until we get to the design, we don't have the exact details, but we'll have to maintain access and work, as we get into that, we'll probably reach out for more detailed information and say, hey, we're looking at doing this. How does that impact you? But so we have some green for temporary for reshaping, extending, expanding parking lot as needed, however that will work out. Again, extending sewer and water, as part of the project. Any questions, thoughts, concerns
You
yet?
say extending sewer and water, is that just west or is it gonna go in front of our buildings too?
Yeah, so we're gonna extend it out past the intersection. It would be in front of your building.
Okay.
So. The next exhibit then is the Nemesis property. And really, I don't know if we'll need to do any permanent acquisition in that far northeast corner or not. Right now, we're showing taking the drainage from that corner northeast and across. We'll just kind of have to look at how that drainage works out. I know there's some utility boxes there. Really the major impact on the NIMS property is temporary access. Unfortunately, we have to, fortunately, either way, depending on who you're looking at, we have to provide access to the west. The other option, I guess, is completely shutting it down and reroute traffic, which I think is around 8 miles on gravel roads. So, so the optional or the optimal condition is to try to provide an access in that corner to keep it open for properties to the west, instead of rerouting people 8 miles out of the way. Then the last exhibit is Barb's property. The biggest impact on Barb's property is really at the westerly side is the tie down, the grades tying down, and then the revetment, which at this point, we don't know how far downstream the revetment will be required. So revetment, we show that as acquiring the property because it's obviously not usable anymore once we put revetment on it. So we're looking to avoid the existing barn/outbuilding that's there at this time. Again, extending sewer and water to the west, getting it to that intersection, getting it past any proposed improvements. So when they can be extended, we don't have to disturb the streets that are being done as part of this project. And as part of that project, and it's shown on a few of those exhibits, the city is looking to extend a trail ultimately to the north to Heartland Heights and connecting Heartland Heights to ultimately downtown and to the complex city park area. So the bridge is going to be designed for the trail. Whether or not the actual trail is put in under the bridge as part of this project is yet to be determined. If they can install it at this time, it long-term is more cost-effective than to regrade it and do it later, but that ultimately be up to the council. And if it's done, it would just be the section underneath the bridge. I mean, you go out several, a little ways past it to get beyond the bridge section, but there's no plans at this time to do any of the trail to the north or to the south. And whether or not they do the bridge underneath it at this time, I don't know. That'll be part of the design process. But at this point, we're designing a bridge for that trail underpass. So with a widened sidewalk on the side of the trail, on the side of the bridge, ultimately to provide pedestrian traffic from the west down to that trail.
And Shane, to clarify a little bit on the proposed future trail, it would go under the highway,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
And go over to connect with the existing trail that's over by EIB.
Yeah.
It's not heading south along the highway, it's going under the highway and across.
Yeah, it'd be a great separated crossing. So we wouldn't have traffic crossing the highway, pedestrian traffic crossing the highway. So, excuse me. That's kind of a quick run through of, again, conceptual impacts on everybody's property. If you have any questions, any concerns, anything that you want us to consider when we do the design and ultimately the construction of this project, let us know. You can let us know now, or if you think of it later, or if you want to wait and talk to us later about it, that's fine. The other things, I guess, a couple of things we want to talk about too then is kind of the process going through. And as part of that process, so before we get into the schedule, that last sheet, it's kind of the tentative schedule. So with federal funding, there's obviously, it's part of these things we have to do no matter what. Part of them we have to do as part of the federal funding. But there's several things that are going to bring us out onto the properties. Some of your properties we may have to get on more so than others. But we're going to have our surveyors out there to collect field data, boundary surveys. We have to have geotechnical out there. We have to do what in geotechnical subsurface explorations. We'll have to do some borings, drillings. We'll have some equipment out on some properties. We'll have to do environmental review. That's more of just somebody coming out and taking a look at some things. Wetlands, wetland investigation analyst, somebody coming out looking mostly along the creek. If there's any wetlands along there, to see if we can disturb any wetlands. That's basically somebody coming out there with a shovel, taking a couple soil samples, kind of seeing what kind of plants and what's out there. Historical, archaeological review, somebody might be coming out for that.
That's the cultural resources, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then asbestos lead study investigation, that'll probably be more directly around the bridge. I don't know if anybody get anybody's property for that, but, and then when we get to the point, we're going to have property appraisal. We'll have appraiser come out and do appraisal of the properties. So they'll probably get a hold of each of the property owners too, and try to set up a meeting with each property owner, so. So those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. Are there any concerns with people coming out on your properties to do these things? Would you like notification ahead of time? Especially like the geotechnical, the survey, things like that?
Yes,
Okay. The city's got your contact, right? The city's got everybody's contact information, so. Okay. And again, I don't know, I mean, the geotech, will want some geotech for soil borings or for kind of the sanitary sewer, and obviously the bridge, is real critical. Surveying will probably get on everybody's property to some degree, but, the other ones will probably be mostly minor impact to most of you. We'll definitely give you all a heads up then beforehand, try to, kind of give you a date schedule when we'll be out there. So, okay, any other questions, concerns with that? All right. So the last sheet is kind of the tentative schedule. And this obviously can change. There's nothing set in stone. But so right now we're working through bringing the consultants on board. There's different consultants, geotechnical, different consultant. We're going to get a bridge engineer involved. We're working probably be with Origin Design. Used to be IIW. They're the ones that actually did the bridge investigation. Getting them involved. Excuse me. Wetland delineation, environmental, will all be different sub-consultants as part of the project. So hopefully we can get them all lined up for the July council and get things moving forward. So we're anticipating data collection, survey, other minor things, July through September, the cultural resources investigation, wetland delineation, all that stuff happening this summer. Structure sizing, actually sizing the bridge, that happening late summer into fall. And then presenting the, kind of the preliminary layout and the options to kind of confirm the final bridge design, the design criteria, to the city and ultimately to property owners. So, concept statements, kind of a big date through this federal funding process through the DOT. So we're shooting for November to get a concept statement to the Iowa DOT. And that's what initiates the environmental review. So that's kind of the timeline that starts. We get the environmental review, then we can start the negotiations for right-of-way easement acquisitions. So that time frame is about a year to 2 years, depending on how long the easement and right-of-way acquisition negotiations take. So that process is November. In November, we'd also submit the Iowa DNR floodplain permit. December, January, hopefully have the geotechnical report completed. February, have the Iowa DNR floodplain permit review. So hopefully have that in November, assuming 8 to 10 weeks, have that by January or February. Environmental concurrence, hopefully have that in place by January, April, in that time period of 2024. Property appraisals, get that process started in January to May. And then we can start negotiations for right-of-way and easement acquisitions. So that's probably sometime next spring. Then we have our DOT preliminary plan submittal. And that's kind of tied into the easement right-of-way negotiations. So the sooner we get those wrapped up, the sooner we get stuff submitted to the DOT and go through that process. So it's possible, we could be looking at 2025 construction season, assuming all the DOT and the DNR and the review processes go as planned, which sometimes they don't. We don't have any holdups, you know, and the wetlands, other processes, there's a lot of different things to consider. And then obviously the right of way and easement negotiations, how long that process takes. We could possibly get this in November 20 or April to November 2025, that construction season. But with all those different variables, I'm anticipating we're probably looking at a 2026 construction season. Are there any questions, concerns with the schedule?
So all of this is for the construction of the bridge and the road, right?
Yeah, so this is kind of tied to the bridge schedule with the other city project. We don't have to go through all of that submittal to the DOT and so forth. But we're gonna keep it on that same track, so we'll bid it. And we'll have, you know, both projects bid with the understanding that the Joseph project's going on, and that there'll have to be coordination between the two project contractors.
So
The idea to put raised curves through there.
Right now, we reflect that on the east side of the bridge. On the west side, we don't. Again, that'll change. Obviously, to the west side, we have, Sealco Road, it's about 20 feet wide. You know, we'll have to tie back into that. I think we're showing that at 28 feet wide with like 24 foot, 22 foot or 24 foot lanes. Maybe it's 28 or 30 foot wide. And then it'll be like a 4 foot paved shoulder. On the west side is what we're anticipating, but those details haven't been finalized yet. So. You know, Barb has a list of questions. Are there any other questions or comments, concerns?
what are my the first sheets were if you got rid of the bridge, right? And then the second sheets are if you get rid of the bridge.
So the first three sheets, the first one there that you have
Yeah.
in front of you right now would just be putting the bridge back in the same location.
I was
Yeah.
kind of confused.
Yeah, no, that one, the second sheet shows getting rid of the bridge. But then we'd have to do improvements at the intersection of Stallman and Highway 151. And we'd have to somehow improve that intersection with Stallman and West Cemetery Road and widen the street for the increased traffic.
They've already decided which plan to go with, so, right? Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the second.
Third. Is it 1A? But that's where I'm looking at our property anyway. That would be one,
It's basically one on the sheet.
sheet one.
Sheet one, that they're, just different exhibits put it together at different times and, but yeah, and that first packet, it's the third sheet. It's kind of broken down with the dark lines and bridge project in the middle and then, but yeah, that's the option that the city is looking at.
I know they're gonna want to discuss this side of it, maybe. I don't know. Or do you want to
Sure.
continue with your questions and
Sure.
then after the meeting, there'll be time. I think
Yeah.
Shane has a few minutes after the meeting too, if you want to ask some individual questions.
Yep.
But for the group, if you have questions, I know Bart does, so. Okay. So I'm gonna be kind of repeating some of the answers you've already given me, but I need to do this in order. We had two maps here that my attorney printed out. And you're talking about, to make it clear, this one.
What about this one?
Is that the one that you're going to be doing?
Well,
That,
right now, the one we're planning to do is one handout.
is it the same as this one though?
I mean, it may be similar. I don't know if there's any minor changes or not, but
Where does these come from, Mark? From my lawyer.
we've
That's
had
right.
different exhibits that we tweaked. Like I said, we started this project, looking at this at some level back in 2017, 2018, so.
So at this meeting today, you're saying that sheet one are your plans?
Well,
This is your
the
map?
conceptual layout, yes, that's the conceptual layout that we're looking into.
Are there more current drawings?
No, this is what we had, and, and I need to be clear, this is all conceptual. This is just us laying out, looking at what, we looked at the three options, putting them back in the same alignment, realignment, or realigning as the city council approved, or getting rid of the bridge. So based on the council's direction, then we base that on, okay, what kind of impacts do we anticipate on the property? There's been no design, there are no plans. These are conceptual drawings, so they're all just approximate at this time.
So this is not the final plan,
No, by no means is this final.
okay? What is the purpose of the acquisition running south along the creek on the,
So, on your property, there's gonna be some grading that we anticipate for the bridge, and then some revetment. And again, we don't know how far that'll impact on your property. But we're just showing something that, based on some conceptual layouts, we anticipate this may be how your property is impacted.
has there been a final determination on the size of the bridge?
No. That'll happen with the degree.
The smaller the bridge, the less impact on property owners and the less cost.
Yeah. We'll try to get it as small as we can.
What size do you have here on, with this plan?
I think it's 140 feet.
140?
I do not know that for sure. And the reasoning for that is just because that's what the highway bridge is immediately downstream. So when we lay this bridge out and ultimately it gets designed, we have to meet certain design requirements for the streets, and for the drainage underneath, what's conveyed, underneath the bridge. Those are some major considerations in the bridge design. Also, obviously, the city, as indicated, wants to look at putting a trail under there, so that could impact the length of the bridge slightly. I don't know how much, that would impact it, but it may impact it some.
What is the size of the existing bridge?
It's 140.
No.
Oh, the existing on West Cemetery Road, I think it's 24 feet, something like that.
Long
Yeah,
and how wide?
24, 28. 23 or 24. I don't know, it's in, actually, I think the dimensions are in one of those,
Okay.
reports.
So what you're saying is you're gonna replace that bridge with one that's 140 feet long and how wide?
Well, I'm not saying that. We put it on there conceptual to show kind of what we anticipate would be the largest impact. And we did that because the Highway 151 bridge immediately downstream is 140 feet. So we did that, we showed 140 feet because at least we don't anticipate that it would be required to go bigger than the bridge immediately downstream. So we're showing it 140. We're hoping that we can get it less. So we wanted to show it as big as we could, again, with the anticipation that we will get smaller. I don't know what it'll be, if it'll be 100, 110, 120, I don't know.
What's the traffic count on West
I
Cemetery?
think it's around, I think the last one was 640 and the one before was around 660.
When did you do those?
We don't, the DOT, you can look on the DOT website.
Okay,
And every 4 years, they do a quarter of the state. And then it got bumped, I think, a little bit with COVID, but the last one I think was 21. Just came out here in the last while, but you can look on DOT counts.
so,
On the DOT website, you do traffic, you know, the traffic count.
yeah, I have checked that for the highway, with that 140-foot bridge on the
So
highway.
if you look for traffic counts, on the Iowa DOT, just do traffic counts, Iowa DOT, and then you can type in the cities, and they have them for the cities and the counties.
Well, the DOT put in a 140-foot bridge over here, and that one gets around, I don't know, 15,000 cars a day.
The length of the bridge isn't determined by the number of traffic on it, it's determined by the flow of the creek.
Quick question about the creek. Throughout the DOT's project, they referred to Oscar Creek as drainage ditch number 1
One or two, yeah.
or 2. And now I've noticed in the last few months, it's being called a creek. Why, is there what's the difference between a creek and a drainage ditch?
I have no idea. I know I've seen it both ways, and the nomenclature on the DOT plans is probably just some engineer labeling them to identify the differences between, because I know there was a drainage ditch, I think in the Cedar Rapids. So, and I know the Oscar Creek has flown around for a long time, but it's not a common name. I've heard some people, local people, that had no idea that it had a name, and some people like, oh yeah, it's Oscar Creek.
Mhm.
I don't
But
know if there's a difference
I'm just-
between
Yeah,
the nomenclature of what one plan set said and what
so you don't know what the difference is between a creek and a drainage ditch.
in this reference now.
Okay. Will the West Cemetery Road Bridge be elevated higher than it is now?
Yes,
Why?
for the flows, to meet the flow requirements, and for the trail underpass.
For the trail underpass?
Yep.
Where will the water drain?
Guess I'm not understanding the question.
Do you have any calculations of where the water is going to be draining
It's gonna,
after that's elevated?
it's draining in the same path. The creek may get realigned under the bridge slightly and cleaned up, but. we're
What
not
about
changing-
rainwater?
We're not changing the drainage path.
What about rainwater?
The rainwater will drain along the drainage path of the creek.
Mm-hmm. Or off of the side of the road? Are you going to be putting any type of drainage system in there? There isn't one now on West Cemetery.
On the east side, if you look at the exhibit, it may reflect it on the east side with the intersections to get that intersection to drain. There's some storm sewers proposed,
But what
but
about,
nothing on the west side.
you're coming right up next to our barn and
Yep.
you're going to be elevating that road.
Yep.
So What's gonna keep
So
the
right
water out
now,
of my barn?
right now, there's a culvert that drains along the south side of West Cemetery Road. I don't think it's reflected on my exhibit, but there's a culvert, excuse me, that drains underneath Stallman Drive along the west side, and that outlets to the northwest corner of your property and drains between the road and your buildings. So to help with the drainage, because it will be tight in between your barn, and it's already tight and it will still be tight. We're looking at diverting that drainage to the northeast. The drainage coming off of it, we'll work in some drainage to get that away from the embankment from the road and the bridge approach, away from the building.
Where is,
Again, those details will be worked out during design.
and this is just questions I'm supposed to be asking, where is the drawing with the temporary easements?
Again, the ones that we just went through, that's all we have, and it's just conceptual.
Okay.
We don't, again, until we get to the design, we don't know exactly what they will be. But this is just to give you an idea, kind of the project impacts on your properties. So,
Okay, on your drawing, I see no access to my barn on the north side. We have doors over there. How are we supposed to get in that barn on that north side?
okay, so that's a concern of yours?
Yes.
Is there a driveway or something there currently, Barb?
To the barn to get into that side of the pasture, but we'll get to that. There's another problem as well. Okay, both drawings have, because we were looking at two drawings in his office, so I'm just saying what he said here. Both drawings have a 12'4" walled off area on the south side of the bridge. What is the purpose?
Can you repeat that again, Barb?
Both drawings have a 12'4" walled off area on the south side of the bridge. What is the purpose?
12'4"
Mm-hmm.
walled off area. Not
I
sure what that
think he's
question is.
referring to this right here.
Mhm.
Right in here. What is that? On top of the bridge, right there.
Oh, yeah, well, bridges have walls. You don't want people driving out the edge of bridges.
No, okay, well,
Oh, you're saying the widened sidewalk.
is that a sidewalk or?
Yeah, it's a widened sidewalk to provide access for pedestrians to the west to get ultimately to the trail.
Say that again, please.
To provide access for pedestrians and bicycles. I mean, most bikes can use that, but kids and so forth. So basically pedestrian access from the west to access the future trail.
Okay, so you kind of answered this question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. I think you just did, but I'm gonna do it again. If it's a trail, does that mean Fairfax contemplates building trails to link up with the east and west end of the new bridge?
As far as I'm aware, there's no plan to extend any trail to the west on West Cemetery Road. To the east, there may be along the highway, but again, that's not part of this project, and that's a council. That's a planning, a P and Z and a council decision, not mine.
So you don't know if that will ever happen? Or when it will
I guess
happen?
I wanna be clear on what you're asking. So if what will ever happen?
Okay, if it's a trail, does that mean Fairfax contemplates building trails to link up with the east and west end of the new bridge?
So the east end of the new bridge, so the trail is proposed north-south. Like Joanne had mentioned, the city's plan goal, long-term, is to tie into the existing trail on the southeast corner of the highway bridge, where there's the existing trail. It goes down along this creek, Oscar Creek Drainage Ditch number 1. Tie into that, run it underneath the Highway 151 bridge, and run it underneath this bridge, and then ultimately extending it north to Harlan Heights.
And you
So
don't,
that's, and then coming east, this widened sidewalk would loop down and tie into this trail. So as part of this project and this trail, that's the only thing I'm specifically aware of, is the trail underneath the proposed bridge, and then ultimately tying in the widened sidewalk on the south side of the bridge to the proposed north-south trail.
And just dumping that white sidewalk on the west side of the bridge onto the street.
Not quite sure, Jay, what you're asking there. Yes, it would tie into the shoulder, widened shoulder.
a widened shoulder.
Yeah.
Not a trail.
The county, well, there's no trail to the west. Yep. I don't know if pedestrians walk out there right now or not. I'm assuming they do, but I don't know for sure. But I know in coordinating with the county on different things, the county usually likes to provide a widened paved sidewalk for pedestrian access. That's all we're looking at doing at this time.
On, this map here, I'm not sure if you've got it on yours, but see those little dots in the creek there? What are those? What's that in the creek?
I think that's the center line of the creek, but I can't say for sure.
And you did say that there is a trail plan for underneath this bridge.
Yes,
And where will it lead again, please?
Thanks for coming.
yeah, thank you. The the trail will tie into the existing trail just southeast of the Highway 150, excuse me, Highway 151 bridge that was constructed 2 or 3 years ago. And then ultimately will extend up north to the Harlan Heights development.
Are there any drawings?
So there's no drawings. There's some conceptual stuff, which I think I met with you about 10 years ago when we did the sewer and the acquisitions. We did the sewer project and the city acquired property at that time for the sewer and future trail.
Oh, you did? That was for future trail? You acquired property for future
Yeah.
trail?
We didn't acquire any for you.
From me?
No, we met with you and we did not acquire any from you, but we extended the sewer east of your property. But yeah, that was all in place for the future sewer or proposed sewer and future trail.
So you don't have any of the trail drawings that show,
We may have some conceptual stuff.
do you have
Yeah.
anything that shows it going under the 151 bridge?
Possibly. I don't know that for sure. I think so. Again, it's, like I said, we met, with you and the other property owners in that corridor.
Well, I'd like to see those where,
Yeah.
If the plan is,
I can show, the city would have them, but we can show you what we have. But I don't know what we have.
if the plan is to go underneath, IDOT's bridge, IDOT must approve. Who are you talking to at IDOT about this?
Right now, there's no plans to do anything underneath the DOT bridge with this project, so. That's the city's plan, but that's not part of this project.
Who are you dealing with at the IDOT?
At this point, no one.
You're not dealing with anyone at IDOT concerning any of the trail plans or the bridge plans with the trail?
No, we have to coordinate with the DOT as part of this project. But
But
there will
isn't-
be no coordination regarding the trail this time.
But isn't the trail part of these plans?
The trail, as part of this bridge, will be designed, and then ultimately the council will decide whether or not they want to construct a portion of the trail under the bridge or not.
I'm
So we're
sorry,
not doing anything with the trail as part of this project to the north or south of this.
just under the bridge, under the.
Yeah, we're designing this
west cemetery.
bridge to accommodate the trail. And then whether or not, the city wants to move forward with constructing the trail as part of the project will be determined at that, as part of that process. We're not doing any design or planning for any trails, at this point to the north or south.
Well, how about on any part of the project at all?
Just what we've already discussed, the widened sidewalk and the trail is part of this,
And under the bridge?
under the bridge.
Has Fairfax applied to IDOT or requested to build a trail in any IDOT right of way under the Highway 151 bridge or along Highway 151?
It has nothing to do with this project.
Well, I'm asking, it does, because you're linking up.
That's part of the planning, so that's not a question I can answer as part of this project right now.
Your emails say that's in the plan, and you asked IDOT to acquire extra property for a trail. What is this? What is that status?
I guess I'm not understanding your question, Barb.
Okay.
What its relevancy of this
It all
project
ties
is.
together. So have you, or has Fairfax applied to IDOT or requested to build a trail in any IDOT right of way under the Highway 151 bridge or along Highway 151?
I don't understand why this pertains to this project, Barb.
Joanne, part of the project. This is part that all ties together. This is all about a trail. So how are you linking that is what I want to know.
To me, you can talk with council about all that. That's not part of this project. That's not part of this meeting. I think that's a conversation you can have with Joanne as mayor or council. It's, again, I can talk to you about the specifics of this project at this meeting.
Well, and what is the difference between a pedestrian trail and a bike trail?
I don't know what the difference there is. There's so much nomenclature about trail, shared use path, bike trail, pedestrian trail, widened sidewalk,
So
sidewalk.
there is no distinction. They're all the same.
I don't know. Again, depending on who you ask. I just know that the city is looking for a trail to connect the north side and the south side. And as part of this project, we're looking at putting it under this bridge, so.
Is IDOT doing the acquisitions for the West Cemetery Bridge project?
No, the city will be doing the acquisitions. The funding that the city has from the federal government through the DOT, it does not include acquisitions or design. The funding is just for the construction of the bridge. I think the excavation or the demolition removal of the existing bridge.
You previously said you were talking to IDOT. Who are you speaking with at IDOT for these acquisitions or any trails?
So I said that we haven't started talking with the DOT yet. So when we have to coordinate with the DOT, obviously for the connection with the to the highway, we'll have to coordinate with them on that. We're also gonna have to probably coordinate how we're gonna handle the temporary traffic at Stallman Drive, so I have to coordinate with the DOT on that. I don't know how much involvement other than the funding and going through the process and decision-making the DOT would have with this specific bridge. And or the trail under the bridge.
So you don't have to work with IDOT at all at this point? You're not speaking to anyone? Who are your contacts with IDOT
Are you, what,
concerning this bridge project,
this bridge project so far is Jennifer Bates on the funding.
on the funding?
Yeah.
What about the design work and all that?
That gets through in the schedule when we start submitting, stuff to the DOT. We'll have contacts, but we haven't gotten that far yet.
Is that, speaking of schedule, Shane, does that look like that's like a projected around June of 24?
Well, a lot of that is, I think the first big submittal is like November with the concept statement.
So the only person you're dealing with is, what did you say her name was? Jennifer?
Jennifer Bates, There's no other one that you're aware of as of yet. Jennifer Bates was who we got notice from on the funding that we coordinated with and coordinated the funding application.
Why is Eagle View Drive being built?
So we're looking at improving that intersection is one. And ultimately, the city is looking at extending Eagle View Drive north and connecting it with Heartland Heights. There's no immediate plans for that, but with future development, as that happens between Heartland Heights and
Thank you, Ron.
the existing development out there, that street will tie into those developments.
Will it be elevated as well?
The intersection,
The road, the Eagle View Drive, as it comes through and at the intersection?
not significantly. I can't, again, until we get designs, I don't know the exact grades, but I don't anticipate it being elevated much. We have to tie in obviously to the existing parking lots in that area. I think the highway sits higher there. So obviously we have to tie into the highway. So I mean, depending on what part of the intersection, it may be elevated some. But for the most part, at where we're at, where the proposed intersection is going to be sitting on or adjacent to the existing intersection, I anticipate will be fairly close to the existing grades.
So the new bridge on, West Cemetery, do you know the elevation of that? I mean, how much higher is it going to be there? And
I
going
don't,
to the north?
I don't know off the top of my head at this point. Again, those details will get worked out with the designs.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Like I said, if you have questions, just, get hold of the city and let us know.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Will traffic be able to access, Highway 151 off of existing West Cemetery Road, or will that intersection be closed permanently?
Say it again, Barb.
Will traffic be able to access Highway 151 off of the existing West Cemetery Road, or will that intersection be closed?
So we go to the proposed drawing. If you go to this drawing here. This will all go away. This will be the new street. This
So
will go away.
So it will be closed. The
It'll be
existing,
removed, yes.
it will be
Yeah,
removed.
there won't be two separate drives side by side. That's no mistake.
I don't see anything in your drawing here that gives me access to our property. Where's that at? On the east side of
Access
the creek.
so access here,
Mhm.
okay? So that's something that
You had that today, right? So, yes.
Jane, what happens to that land? Is it DOT, is it city?
I don't know exactly. Well, this is a city street.
So the city just retains that?
I believe the city determines what they want to do with it, yeah. I assume they retain it.
Has there been any discussions for that?
Well, right now, the drawings show a trail there, so I assume the city would retain that, to maintain the trail. I haven't had any discussions with staff or council about that, but I would anticipate that's what would happen, Jay.
You mentioned a few of the concerns on the West Cemetery, Road intersection. I don't believe that is askew. The DOT's, since they did ours on Stallman, that was askew, that was the whole thing, why they redid that whole corner. This is a straight intersection, so what's the problem with that intersection?
Well, it's not at a right angle. And I know when we met with the DOC on the highway project, they expressed several times that they wanted to see that wheel.
Do
So,
we have any aerial shots of that?
Just,
right here,
well, I mean,
there's your street,
right.
right intersections like this. This street is exactly east-west, correct? So if it's at a right intersection with the highway, it'd be exactly north-south. So the highway there is clearly not,
It's on a curve
it's
though,
on a curve, exactly.
but it's still straight across. I mean,
Well, that's your opinion, that's fine. But
are there other concerns with that bridge and that corner? Is it just because it's askew?
no, the two things the city looked at is improving the intersection,
Mhm.
so it's at a better angle. And to improve the access drive through there for the current traffic that's being used to develop or to access those properties and properties to the north, ultimately extending extending that street further north and tying into Heartland Heights.
Are there sight distance or visibility concerns at that corner?
I don't, that's a question, I guess, more for the DOT. I haven't done any studies on that, not aware of any studies off the top of my head. Are there concerns with the alignment of the bridge, the proposed alignment?
Of which,
Do you have, what the city has proposed in this alignment?
Mhm.
Or do you have concerns with that proposed alignment?
I do.
What are those concerns?
Well, my concerns are that it just seems like a big old overkill on a bridge, that's gonna, I'm very concerned about the elevation and the flooding issues. Because the more I'm built up all the way around, the more I'm a flooding pit. I'm a flooding pit now because the bridge was elevated 3 feet. I never was before.
So could you say it again?
I never was before,
No, I'm sorry, the comment before that.
that the bridge was elevated 3 feet. The highway bridge.
But
The highway
you said
bridge.
you were impacted how?
Flooding,
So you're experiencing flooding now because of the highway project.
yes.
So your concern is if this is elevated, that's gonna cause you to flood.
Have you looked at our property? We've been built up all around, and now you're gonna build up on the north side. And we're sitting in a basin, and that's a problem.
So what does this alignment? What's the other, what's?
It's
in
the
your
elevation.
opinion-
I'm
No, I
concerned.
understand that.
Mhm.
So what's the alternative? Putting back the bridge exactly as it is what you'd like to see.
Well, I would like to see it put back just as a little bridge that most people build these days that would handle 500-600 cars a day. And not build it up and widen it and do all that stuff.
So just so you understand, there are design standards on what needs to be done.
Mhm.
And those design standards are based on the drainage that comes down that creek.
Mhm.
So, that impacts the opening of the bridge, that impacts the elevation of the bridge.
What else impacts the elevation of the bridge?
The trail impacted some, yes.
Yes. So is the creek area a wetland, do you know?
I don't, that's something we have to get
Okay.
a study on. I don't think there's wetland websites that kind of indicate possible wetlands. And I don't think I haven't looked in quite a while. I don't think it indicates that there's probable wetlands there, but we still have to do an investigation, have somebody come out and do that. So I do not know that, but I don't anticipate a lot there, but I don't know yet.
What is the north-south private drive
south of, CMF R and S Investments property.
So right now, that's how they access their site, all the development, all the businesses to the north there access their site is off that private drive.
Who's gonna maintain that drive
But right now, the property owners maintain it.
after?
The city will own what's shown on there and maintain it. That'll be a public street. So Eagle View up until that point where it ties off, which obviously isn't final yet, but that would be public, and that's why the city would be acquiring right away. West Cemetery Road would be a public street and maintained by the city, I think to the easterly property line of Ron Hilton's.
So there's basically a four-way intersection with one of the filters being a private drive. That's what it looks
The
like.
private drive would extend north and east of that,
Right.
so the city's right away would stop. With the anticipation that in the future, that would become, public as well, but there's no immediate plans. Obviously, as the buildings change in there, as development happens to the north, will impact that. But the thought is you would have a three-way stop. From the north would be a stop, from the east would be a stop, from the west would be a stop. Traffic coming in the highway would not stop. We don't want to back up traffic. So that traffic would continue through and have the right of way.
I'm looking at this, drawing and I'm seeing all of this
Revetment, yeah, that rock.
wrap or whatever it's
Riprap,
called.
revetment, yes.
Mhm.
Yep.
That's right up to my barn.
Yeah.
Literally right up to the barn. Have
Yeah.
you, I mean, can you imagine what that's gonna be like? I won't be able to drive on it, won't be able to access that.
And again, this is preliminary. There's some things we obviously have to work out. We don't know all the details yet.
Why can't this trail or whatever is on top of the bridge
The
go
wide
on the north
sidewalk?
side? Go on the north side. It's a 12-foot wide trail, sidewalk, whatever you wanna call it.
Yeah.
It's all the same, but anyway. Why can't it go on the north side of that bridge?
Because of the area to tie back into the existing trail. There's more area on the north or the southeast side for that to tie back down to the proposed trail.
There's nothing on the north side, so it just seems like,
There's Weisskopf's parking lot.
but there's nothing built on the north side. We have just been absolutely decimated, all for the love of a trail. And I'm a flooding pit because of a trail that you wanted,
That I wanted.
yeah.
I don't think I speak for the city. I represent the city as the engineer. I don't make the city's decisions.
So Shane, you just said.
Do I make your decision?
No, sir.
Do I make your decision? Joanne, do I make your decision? I answer questions for them. I provide them information to consider. I don't tell them what to do. I provide them information. They make the decision.
I don't hear a lot of discussion.
And I
when-
can't speak for the council, but you should ask the council if I make their decisions for them at the next meeting. We'll see what they say.
Okay, I will.
So Shane, you just said that it can't be on the north side because it affects the Weisskopf parking lot. But if I look at this, it doesn't appear like.
Well,
You don't see anything affecting the
If-
south.
no. Again, this is conceptual. Maybe it could be on the north side. But I'm just anticipating that there's not room to get that widened sidewalk trail, whatever you want to call it, Bart, on the north side, and then to be able to tie back down to the trail going underneath the bridge. There's obviously gonna be, 9-10 feet of elevation change, something like that. I'm not sure, but they're not designed.
9-10 feet of elevation change where?
Between the top of the trail and the trail going underneath the bridge.
So this is actually like a ramp right here at the end on the north side then.
Yeah, so if you look again on that. Let's show you.
What page?
Basically, if you look at your property exhibit. There's the trail. This obviously is gonna be higher. The bridge is higher. This one under the bridge, this is up at top of the bridge, right?
Let me see this. Can I have that? Yeah.
Yes.
Where is it?
It's the second package, last of the day.
It's probably here.
Yeah.
This one?
It's that one right there.
Okay. So, okay, keep going.
So the bridge is obviously above the creek, correct? We're going over the creek.
Yes.
The trail is along the side of the creek underneath the bridge.
Mm-hmm,
So there's obviously a grade separation.
mm-hmm.
And that's why the city really wants to see this north-south trail through there, is you have a trail for pedestrian access that is separate from the highway. So the pedestrians can cross the highway, don't have to be along the highway. It's completely separated from the highway. It's the safest alternative, safest option. So to get this pedestrian traffic to tie back down, this loop here, not technically a ramp, but yes, there's significant drop.
So that,
Going from
this
here
is,
down
this
to here.
is like 8 or 9 feet down grade. And
This would be
it's gotta-
higher, this would be lower. Yeah, so this will be lower. This will be around the existing grades that are there now. Then this would be higher to go over the creek and the trail underpass, and that would tie back down.
And slowly
So-
make its way back down.
Yeah, so over, a couple hundred feet, whatever it is, I don't have that number on me, but we'll drop 7, 8, 9 feet, whatever it may be. So to get that,
Get that big loop is what.
and to
you're
get that
concerned.
drop to tie back in this area, that's something we can definitely look at. I just don't know if it's feasible. That's why we're flexing in on the south side.
Well, why does it
Again,
have to
like
go
I
under
said,
the
we can
bridge
look
at all?
it. Why does the trail have to go under the bridge?
Why can't it just loop around and be on top?
That's a question for council. Safety, if you can avoid pedestrians with traffic, it's not a high traffic use,
No.
but we have, we don't have it, but the city wants to get the grade separated crossing with the highway, ultimately. So they want to keep it continuing underneath this bridge. Instead of bringing it up and around and then having to stop, especially mid-block and crossing mid-block up here and tying it up. You had yours, right? This is yours.
And this owl, are you recording this now? So you'll have copy? Okay, can I get a copy of that? Can it be shared?
Cynthia's shaking her head yes. At the moment, we're not posting it anywhere in my head.
Correct, but, it saves the video on the Google Drive. I did a test this morning, so yes, I believe. I don't know if it's too big to email. You may have to bring a flash drive.
I can do that.
Also experimenting with the sound.
This morning it worked because I went into a different setting than I did.
Okay,
in-
to pick up some of the softer, more lower voices.
So,
So the answer is yes, you can get a copy.
Okay.
any other questions?
Only, who the contact is at District 6 with you, who you do the dealings with concerning
Yeah. At
this.
this point, we haven't.
You had no
reached out to them
discussion
about-
with
about this
IDOT
project, no.
about this project?
No.
District 6, you've not discussed anything with them?
No, I got a list of things we need to work out, but I haven't reached out to them specifically about this project, and we'll have to get a permit for this, and obviously it's gonna impact that turn lanes, we need to coordinate that. We need to look at probably some temporary improvements, widening at Stallman for the bypass traffic, because it's not wide enough to handle truck traffic right now.
On the temporary easements, what is, on the one map I looked at my attorney's office yesterday, what is temporary and what isn't?
So temporary, just based,
No, I mean, you got them kind of colored. Can you tell me
Yeah.
what you're taking and what you're not taking? What is a temporary easement? and what-
so again, it's conceptual, so we don't know. We don't know where the revetment's gonna be, all that stuff, we don't know for sure yet, but it's just something we're showing that we anticipate, could be That could be it. So in these exhibits, the red is proposed right away. So the city would buy it and own it. And it would be for like a street that's a public street, the street owns and maintain. Usually like a local street, 60-foot right away. And the right of way means the city owns and maintains that. So that's what the red is showing, that the city would buy and own it. And then a permanent easement, a lot of times those are used for utilities and stuff like that. The city would acquire a permanent easement where the property owner would still own the property and could use the property, but the city has the right to access it and maintain. So like if you put a sewer or water on there, you can put grass on there, you can put a garden on there, whatever, still use it, but the city can come in there, access it, repair, replace it, maintain it. A temporary easement is there for, basically just the construction. So like with Ron Rex, we show this big green area because, we're anticipating that possibly we could use that for, staging, put some equipment, materials on there. It's a big open area. Another thing might be, if we get permanent right away 10 feet into your property, we might get a 10-foot temporary to tie it in, put a, ditch to drain it or, to get the drainage to where it's going and so forth. That would ultimately go back to you and just be there during construction, and then you'll get it reestablished and get it so you can use it or whatever. So that's kind of the difference in the terminology. Right away acquisition would be a permanent property acquisition. Temporary easement's just during construction. Permanent easement would be something that for the most part is underground, is buried. The city, has the right to access, maintain it, but you can use it through your property.
So on our property, that would be a condemnation of that, correct? That where it's red, this is a permanent.
Yeah.
Permanent taking.
Yeah, well, and this latest exhibit, we would be looking at acquiring that. And the reason for that is because of the revetment for the most part. Now, some of that could be temporary, some of it, temporary easement or permanent easement. We just reflected it as, kind of as much as possible. We've got the water main showing across there. That alignment may change a little bit. We need probably 10 to 15 feet on each side of that water main to access and maintain it. So depending on where that falls, we may have an easement instead of acquisition. So again, this will change as we get through the design, the exact details. You might have some temporary easement, you may have a permanent easement, you may have some permanent acquisitions.
And
The
you,
acquisition, I'm sorry,
no, you go.
you mentioned, condemnation.
Mhm.
You may go to that process. That's something we can negotiate if you want to negotiate it before it goes to condemnation, or, it can end up in condemnation, but that's something that the city can, work through negotiations with you on that.
And again, you will see to it that I have access to our property on the east side of the creek.
That's, so in our conversations, you expressed concerns about access to the barn
Yes,
on the north side,
yes,
access to your property on the east side.
yes.
And then flooding concerns.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Come back to with the widened sidewalk. And are these proposed trails, are these ATV friendly?
That's a city policy thing.
Right, but so like, one of my questions I'm not understanding. So right now, the widened sidewalk across Prairie Creek, it
Yeah,
seems.
and that's a trail. And
It's
again, this is my
insignificant.
terminology, and you can ask somebody else that's completely different. The city's, what the city has done with their trails is typically 11-foot wide. And you can get into different design standards, if it should be 10 or 12 or whatever, but that's what the city trails they have in place, I believe, are all 11 feet. I may be mistaken, but I'm pretty confident that's what we've done. And that's what we show this as. But when you get along a bridge, and you have, in this situation, what you'd have like a concrete wall, stem walls that are 2.5 foot high. And the whole point of that is so you separate the pedestrian traffic from the the people and have, or from the traffic and have a barrier. And then you'd probably have like a 6 or 8 foot high.
Yeah, I think they called it a bike rail or something like that on the DOT's, their order
Yeah.
list is bike rail, but they put it there.
But you get into, you're supposed to have so much clear zone and, you know, clearance between it and all that stuff. So you have barriers. So the amount of traffic, I mean, when you put that trail in, you will see people that will want to walk to it and get to it. I mean, that's how it works. So we want to provide them a safe route to get there. But if you have so much clearance from the wall and the fencing, you have to have like 2 foot clearance from each. Then you get into, well, your trail has to be 10 feet. And then you have to have 2 foot clearance. So it needs to be 14 feet or whatever. So based on the number of traffic, amount of traffic and stuff, we want to make that as narrow as possible. Because it's not needed to be super wide and we want to impact the properties as minimal as possible. So that's why it's called a widened sidewalk. If we call it as a trail, you know, per the design standards, we'll probably have to make it wider, which we don't feel is necessary. And again, we understand we're impacting you. We're impacting the other property owners. There's, you know, we can do as much as we can, but we're still going to impact you and the other property owners. But we want to try to minimize that, obviously, and, you know, meet your concerns the best we can. We may or not believe that, but that's true. You can ask the council, you can ask staff. I mean, that's ultimately what we want to do is get this project done. You know, work with the property owners and try to address your concerns the best we can.
So specifically on the Prairie Bridge, the widened sidewalk gets significant ATV traffic now.
Yeah.
I mean, a
I'm sure it
lot.
does.
And so that they're actually making their own trail on each side of the bridge when they get off, because they don't go on the street.
Yeah.
So my concern then is the same thing, if you build it, they will come, is gonna happen here with what sort of pre-designed thoughts on where is that traffic gonna go?
They're
So,
already using the Highway 151 bike trail for the ATVs.
Right across your property.
Yeah.
I know.
so the AV, and I don't know, the ATV traffic on this road, I mean, it's 660 vehicles per day. It's not huge. Obviously, the highway, like you mentioned, is 15,000, significantly different. The ATV traffic can utilize the road, shouldn't have to utilize the sidewalk along the bridge.
But they are.
But you think they'll use this sidewalk?
That's what they're doing currently on the other one, and I would expect they would do the same thing there, because
Well-
they prefer to be off the road out of traffic.
No, I
if they can.
understand that. But the Prairie Creek, and this may be signage, it may be monitoring, I don't know. And maybe you put some bollards up. I foresee that as for pedestrian traffic, or, you know, a mom or dad's out there and their young kids on a bike, you know, you don't want them on, you don't want to have them on the sidewalk, but obviously things happen that you don't plan for, and that's your point. But,
Well, no,
I
my
mean,
point
something
is
like
that
this-
it's already happening, and I'm agreeing that it's with your bike and
Yeah.
people walking is what was intended, but what's actually happening is we've got motorized traffic now on those pieces.
well, in the pedestrian bridge over the Prairie Creek, obviously it's an alternate route to the highway, which has a lot of traffic and people want to avoid that. And it was designed for emergency vehicles. So I mean, they can put an ambulance or a fire truck on there. I think the thought was, and Cynthia was here when all that was going down, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the thought was that, you know, golf carts, things like that could use that. They did put up the bollards to try to minimize that. And I don't know if I don't know a lot about ATV vehicles, how wide they are. I think the bollard, I measured it not too long ago. I think the plates to the edge are like 36 inches, the bollards by 40 inches. You know. So.
Are you talking about?
Talking about the
He's talking about the
bridge across
on the
Prairie Creek.
walking trail.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that was designed to allow for some pedestrian or some you know, off-road vehicles,
Emergency,
yeah,
yeah.
emergency
Just for
vehicles
emergency.
and,
I don't think the recreational are supposed to be using it.
No,
I
they're
believe
not.
federal funding said that's the.
No motorized
yeah,
vehicles.
and that's,
And I don't know that they do on that one.
They don't.
Yeah, I don't think they do.
you're
It's the
saying they're
one
using the highway bridges.
across Prairie Creek, so that they've actually
I see
made their
what you're
own
saying.
trail
I
on
wasn't
each side where there's nothing there.
Oh, but it's all graded for the trail.
I would
So
like-
it will be there.
And so that it already is there because they already use it
Right.
and they're not gonna stop using it. And now you're gonna build another one, which is gonna extend their access and
Yeah.
so that's,
For the
My concern.
motorized vehicles, yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
And
Well,
so
again,
you
it's-
potentially gonna put bollards or something here so they can't get down off the bridge. They gotta go back on the highway there, but that means they're gonna find some other access so that they stay on the highway.
I don't, I,
That's part of the
Yeah.
design consideration.
yeah.
Because
Some
that's
of that
already
stuff, I
happening
don't know,
currently.
some of that stuff it's hard to design for.
I know.
It's, but,
Well, and liability is a concern, and I've been concerned about that for some time. On our property.
Well, and privacy and everything
And
else. I mean,
privacy,
You bring all those
yes.
people that are literally now 10 feet from your spot.
so Barb, there's the two access concerns, the flooding concern.
Yep.
And as of right now, there's no other concerns that you wanted to point out.
Well, not that I can think of, but I'm sure that there are.
Well,
I
Let us
have
know.
so many. I have so many concerns, as you
let us
know.
know. And like I said, we can work with you the best we can and we'll do that.
Well, my one concern is I want to know, who at IDOT you're dealing with. That's who I want to know, besides Jennifer.
You want the
names?
local IDD, Iowa DOT.
Yeah,
personnel.
your people. I want to know,
Who do you call up and have a conversation
Yeah.
with when you need to talk to
I
somebody about this
don't,
conversation?
I don't deal with the DOT all that much. The, the person we would deal a lot with permits, utilities, right away permit, things like that. That's.
what about it, like with the plans, the planning.
So we don't deal with the DOT a lot. Obviously the Highway 151 project, we dealt with Nerman. Was it Nerman? Newman. But he's gone. I mean, I don't know if he's still with the DOT, but I know he's not in the same position.
Mhm.
And, but that was that specific project that he was overseeing. It wasn't a regular local office personnel. A lot of times when we deal with the DOT, it's like utilities in the right of way, things like that. So,
But like with the planning of all of this, because there's a lot of federal funding involved here, so
Mhm.
there's gotta be somebody, the DOT,
that's
that's,
usually at the state level.
that's
That's
federal.
usually more Des Moines level,
Okay, so,
local systems.
so
and
who would
stuff.
that be, that you would,
We haven't dealt with that yet. That's all part of this process that we're going through right now. Jennifer Bates is the, the only person we've dealt with directly yet. There may have been somebody else that, with the application, that we coordinated with, but I don't remember off the top of my head.
would there be any way of finding that out with the application?
If you look at the email.
Yeah, we look at the email.
So I'd like that name.
Yeah.
It's on the application.
So Cynthia, I'll give you a contact information. You can forward that on. All right. Thanks, Barb.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
You could unplug this baby.